WEFUNK. We funk.
And I guess as usual, the annual Canelo Alverez Mexican Independence Day weekend fight taking place, however, this time out of the ring for the pound-for-pound king, Canelo Alverez, as I guess, first of all, we've talked about it a lot here on the show. It's been a big theme so far in my, first year here on the KO Cast, but I've talked a lot about how Canelo Alverez is the best businessman in the sport of boxing, okay, and I guess, as well as we all know, he fights on the two traditional Mexican holiday weekends, Cinco de Mayo and the Mexican Independence Day weekend, which are both, just traditionally speaking, two of the biggest, fight weekends in the annual calendar, that first weekend of May on the night of the Kentucky Derby, and as well as early on in September with, fall sports coming back and all, are very traditional. They happen to be Mexican holidays, very traditional boxing weekends. Canelo Alvarez has fought traditionally on those two dates, especially, like I said, around Mexican Independence Day weekend here, which is just coming up, I believe it's today, actually, as I record, or as the show gets released anyway. So happy Mexican Independence Day to all of my peeps out there. But back to Canelo. However, back to Canelo not fighting, or I guess fighting in the courtrooms this September, as I guess I tease with the big story that has come out, but the major lawsuit going down between Canelo Alvarez and both DAZN as well as Golden Boy, which are the the promotion company whom he is signed with, as well as the boxing streaming service whom he signed the ridiculous, industry-changing deal that got to, and as predicted by me, was totally bound to fall apart. As, like I said, I've talked a lot about the business of Canelo, and, this contract has come up a lot, and it had disaster, eventually it had disaster written all over it, I guess. To catch everybody up, ultimately the contract, of course, was the 11-fight, $365 million contract for Canelo Alvarez, who, like I mentioned, is, on the very short list, if not at the top of the, pound-for-pound king and biggest star in the sport today, okay, and DAZN, which, as I talked about, but as HBO left the fight game, DAZN, a boxing streaming service, kind of tried to fill the void and premiered right after HBO left and signed Canelo Alvarez to this huge groundbreaking contract, which in a lot of ways, I kind of compared it to like when, a Nike opens up one of these huge flagship stores on Rodeo Drive or Fifth Avenue, and they kind of hemorrhage money every single month. However, they make up for it in the, 3D billboard name recognition in the heart of town and in the major real estate and all that. So for DAZN to lock up the star's biggest sport right off the bat as a streaming service, they kind of premiered to the world with an exclusive contract with one of the sport's biggest stars that really put them on the map right off the bat, that they were a real deal in this boxing market without HBO. That was now kind of everybody, ESPN now in the boxing game, but a lot of people competing to see who is going to be the new leader in the sport with HBO out. And it was a great move for DAZN to kind of put themselves on the map, okay? However, there was obvious problems with the fact that they were going to, not be able to really, and, the deal ultimately structured where Canelo kind of gets like a $35 million licensing fee per fight. Okay, so it's he gets paid $35 million to fight, and then DAZN worries about the pay-per-view buys, the gate, all of that kind of stuff. So Canelo's money is guaranteed. DAZN's money would be a little bit more fight to fight. Okay, and I guess the problems you really started to hear the grumblings between Canelo and DAZN earlier than probably anybody thought, but really last September, literally a year ago today, where we all felt very gypped that we did not get for the third consecutive year the trilogy of the epic rivalry of Canelo and Golovkin, as of course the first two Triple G Canelo fights took place the September weekend on 17 and 18. Everybody wanted the third fight in 19. However, we all knew the only person that didn't want it was Canelo. However, I guess Canelo, I guess there was problems between the promotional company, the fighter, and the streaming service, as DAZN kind of felt that Golden Boy had, promised them that they were going to be able to have some fight approval since they're paying Canelo the licensing fee for these fights. They were going to have, a little bit more on their thumb on who he was going to be able to fight, hence manipulating that third Canelo-Golovkin fight, which is, of course, what the whole world wants, everybody in the world other than Canelo wants to see and is the biggest moneymaker possible. Okay, so DAZN kind of felt Golden Boy was going to be able to, lead Canelo in that direction. Canelo felt kind of thrown under the bus by this situation because he claims that, he in his contract has fight approval and didn't, was not going to be persuaded by the streaming service into picking his fights just because he had the, per fight contract. So I guess that was kind of where it all started, the grumblings, and I guess further really intensified here in Coronaville, where now again back to the whole fight approval situation, but now where we're talking no fans and the sport as a whole has been down, so DAZN has not been taking in any sort of cash. Canelo Alvarez would still be guaranteed his $35 million to fight, even if it is a crowdless, fanless fight. So because of that, he feels DAZN has not approved any of the fighters that Golden Boy have suggested, nor have they went out of their nor have they tried or attempted to make a fight for Canelo at all during this time, so they wouldn't have to pay. They're obviously, going to hemorrhage money if they set up a Canelo fight, so they're not setting up a Canelo fight. And this obviously makes Canelo mad because not only is he, losing out on the money, but as well he wants to fight. He's, like I said, the pound-for-pound king. He's coming off. He hasn't fought since last November in the epic, win versus Kovalev, going up 2 divisions and winning the belt in light heavyweight. And really, this is, I guess, where you can really see it from Canelo's way. And I guess ultimately speaking, this suit is for, $280 million in damages. That as well about the fight approval, where he feels contractually Golden Boy misled DAZN, and so there's the contractual so there's the contractual side of the fight approval thing, as well as Canelo claims that DAZN has not paid in full some of the license fees, as well as other kind of royalty and merch money or whatever, extra money, IPOs for the stock and all this other kind of structured money into the contract. Canelo claims DAZN has not paid up in full. So all in all, Canelo suing both DAZN and Golden Boy. Okay, and you can definitely see it from his perspective, especially in terms of DAZN, who last year, we kind of threw him under the bus for the not fighting the Triple G. But what did DAZN expect? 11 Triple G fights from Canelo, I mean, Canelo didn't want to fight Triple G for a third consecutive year in 2019. Instead, he fought Jacobs, who's, an American champion and a super popular fighter, and then went up 2 divisions to fight Kovalev in one of the defining moments of his career, like I mentioned. He was the 2019 Fighter of the Year. So it's not like he was fighting nobodies. He fought 2 great fights and was literally the Fighter of the Year. So if DAZN's not happy with Canelo's, fight, his gates the last couple of, years, not living up to what it did with Golovkin, the biggest rivalry that the sport has seen in the last 10 years or whatever, since Mayweather-Pacquiao, they weren't going to all be Canelo-Golovkin. And you probably shouldn't have agreed to pay him $35 million for 11 fights because it was obviously going to backfire in your face. So from Canelo, he feels that he has full fight approval. He wants to guarantee that. And again, he does feel bitter for being thrown under the bus and for having guys like me bash him for the last year for running from Golovkin, which, like I said, Canelo is, he's definitely running from Golovkin, but he's also a business guy. So he's, take the year off. I'm going to have 2 epic fights. For all we know, he, without coronavirus, would have totally loved to fight Golovkin this September, and finally do that trilogy after building it up another year, more epic fights, more, wins, more defining moments for Canelo, more wins for Golovkin, and the fight would be even bigger. I did even say that at the time that Canelo's ultimately pulling a Mayweather and trying to draw it out till Golovkin's a couple years older and a little bit easier to beat. So eventually he's gonna live in his next 11 fights, he's gonna fight Golovkin again, so you can't, they're definitely a little crazy with that as well. The recent fight approval situation is definitely, where you can kind of business and coronavirus just has to come into logical sense here, where does Canelo deserve to fight? Does he deserve to, if he fights, does he deserve to get what he's contractually agreed to? Yes, I suppose. However, you can understand from DAZN's perspective, they can't, given everything that's going on. I, as myself, especially during the down fight period, canceled DAZN. You know what I mean? I'm the boxing podcast guy. I canceled the service because there was no fights for months. And, everybody's unemployed. Life is tough right now. So I put my, $20 a month boxing streaming service on hold, and I'm sure a lot of other people did too. And there's not any other fights coming on. So they don't have any money coming into the till. And they can't, hemorrhage money at a time like this for a Canelo fight that, let's be honest, against Billy Joe Saunders or Colin Smith, nobody's going to watch or care about. So I understand that is what DAZN's issue is. However, from DAZN, you signed the deal, so I feel ultimately what's going to happen, and as well, DAZN is in a very tough situation because DAZN, like I mentioned, the whole idea for DAZN to sign that contract was to kind of put their name and put their stake in the boxing streaming world, and they did themselves a great job by that. And if they come to an amicable buyout, which is what Canelo is looking for now, ultimately speaking, it will have done a great job at helping get them off the ground. They got a couple of Canelo fights in while it lasted, and they got them a lot of name recognition. And if they come up with an amicable solution, and they can even maybe co-promote fights with Canelo in the future or something like that, and still work with Golden Boy, it ultimately speaking, no harm, no foul, and it was a savvy enough business decision because they are still in the tricky situation of needing to protect their name in the fight streaming game with other fighters as well. I guess I should mention that that Golovkin as well had to sign a DAZN exclusive contract, which which we all figured was solely so he could eventually get that Canelo fight. He's literally chasing him to the streaming service, so there won't be any contractual issues with getting that Golovkin Alverez fight off. You know what I mean? So DAZN, so a lot of people have put their eggs in that basket, which I understand, but just in terms of DAZN, they can't, ruin their name with other fighters in the future by the first thing they did is, reneging on a contract with the biggest star in the sport. So I think that an amicable solution, Canelo is seeking a buyout. I think ultimately speaking, they will agree to an easy enough buyout with DAZN, because DAZN, I'm sure, would love to not have to, especially with just the state of the sport going forward with coronavirus, which obviously shocked us all, well after the DAZN and Canelo came to the terms of the deal. The whole world changed with all of this stuff, and it's going to impact the sport for still a very good while to come anyway. So is DAZN going to put Canelo's contract his 11-fight deal just totally on hold until things clear up? That's obviously not fair. So something will have to happen. I feel it's important for DAZN to maintain positivity in their brand in the fight community, so they'll have pressure to make a deal with Canelo. I feel Golden Boy, who needs Golden Boy anyway? So I would definitely not be surprised if Canelo left Golden Boy and then entered yet another free agency period where now Top Rank with ESPN and PBC and their allegiance to Fox would go through an epic bidding war for the exclusive rights to Canelo, who, like I've talked about before on the show, is the best businessman in boxing, and it appears another sound victory for the champ this Mexican Independence Day weekend. And I guess that will, be made official, not officially this weekend. However, you would definitely imagine that, however, for now, still a bummer because Canelo, not a fight to look forward to in the near future here. As of now, as well, I guess the WBC did, is making a purse bid for his mandatory. So that fight is officially on the table upon approval from DAZN, who's obviously going to give it the big nicks. And like I said, Callum Smith out there, Billy Joe Saunders, other fighters for Charlo. We'll talk about a huge fight coming up this weekend for Jermell Charlo versus Derevyanchenko, who gave Golovkin a really tough time last September, as a matter of fact, in lieu of the Canelo fight. Derevyanchenko gave Golovkin that great fight. He's fighting Charlo, the undefeated Jermell Charlo, coming up for a lot of great middleweight competition out there for Canelo. However, of course, we're stuck in the middle of litigation instead of the middle of the ring. However, you would imagine all to be sorted out soon. And like I mentioned, Canelo, really at this point, kind of one of the last stars to not really have a fight. Even Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. have a fight announcement, for fuck's sake. Yet nothing from Canelo. Crawford, still, nothing official. I guess Kell Brook, very close to getting finalized. However, we've heard a lot of fights getting finalized for Crawford, and so far nothing. So interesting to see what happens there. However, Canelo's still waiting for a big fight announcement.
Big F! WEFUNK. We funk.